Good evening, good morning, good day. I hope this video finds you well, and always. And I'll tell you a story from way back in my Army years. Kind of a sad story, but about when I had what's called prisoner escort duty. Yeah. And the hardened heart. The hardened heart. And I'm going to tell you about this really sad story. I was telling a friend of mine, I was sitting out by the fire cooking out like I do just about every night when the weather's nice. And I told him this story, and I hadn't told this story in a while and hadn't thought of it. And dealing with people with hardened hearts. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Bible says about it, and you take it however you want to take it. First, a word about my candles. I am back into candle making. I was successful at making a candle mold. I finally found the candle I wanted when I was in France. A spiral candle. I'll show you the prototype. I found these candles in Denon, France. So I successfully made a mold for it out of silicone. Yeah, I got a string on it as part of when I was casting the mold. I might make a video how to make a mold for candles, how to make candles like I'm doing. Now these candles here are kind of odd. They are black. These are indeed black candles. And no, I'm not getting into the occult. It's charcoal in here. And I'm getting better at making candles. These ones are kind of drippy because I didn't get the wick in the center, but I figured out how to do that and they don't drip like they do, so these ones are going to act strange. And they've got charcoal in them, which gives them the black color, but it burns very clean. So I've read, obviously it's just wax with charcoal. There's no dye. I've read things about candle dyes being toxic. I'm not really too concerned about that, but a little bit. So I tried to use something natural. I had charcoal powder from about 7 or 8 years ago when I lived out of the town, and I was making black powder from scratch with sulfur, potassium nitrate, and charcoal. And the very best charcoal powder for black powder is made from willow wood, willow branches. It makes a very fine talc. It actually floats in the air. It's so fine. And that's why they use it in black powder. So I got a bunch of that around. I still had it, and I decided to try it in these candles, which they actually burn quite well. They're going to sputter a bit here and there because, like I said, the wick I wasn't centering the wick. All right, so candles. I've been making a bunch of them, different colors. I just don't want anybody to think I'm into the occult because I've got black candles going on, because my last video was I was communicating with a spirit, but trying to help him to move along, as a Christian, prayerfully. And maybe I'll do a follow-up on that at some point if you like. Kind of a heavy topic. This is a heavy topic. All right, prisoner escort duty and the hardened heart. Back in my paratrooper days, to put it in perspective, here's a picture of me, a couple of pictures of me around the time of this story. Just to put it in perspective. So, this is a long time ago. Well, I was told, I was an infantry sergeant, but I was told before I got out, I didn't go to the field for about a month. Seems like, and they just had me doing all kinds of odd jobs, and I was told I had prisoner escort duty. Picture off. And prisoner escort duty meant that I had to go pick up prisoners or take prisoners to soldiers to what we called Charlie's Chicken Farm, which was CCF, Correctional Facility, which was basically jail on Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And Fort Bragg, North Carolina is like a small city. I think it had back then about 80,000 people on it. So, yeah. And it's pretty... Charlie's Chicken Farm, or CCF, Core Correctional Facility. That was a place you did not want to go to. They were pretty rough. I know I saw it firsthand. They really dogged the soldiers there. Pretty good when they were sent there for correction. Yeah. All right. So, at any rate, this particular soldier, I remember his name was Danny. He was like a PFC. He was in my company, but not in my platoon. And I knew that he'd gone AWOL over a girlfriend. It usually is over a woman, but he went AWOL, and he was gone for quite a while. And they got him, and he came back, one or the other. But he had to spend some time at CCF, and before they kicked him out of the army. And I had to go pick him up, and it was kind of a sad occasion. His father was dying of cancer, and they wanted him to see his father before he died. And his father was in a hospital. I think he was in like a nearby city of Charlotte. He wasn't on the post, Fort Bragg. He was in a civilian hospital, though his father was in the military. So I got a Jeep. I had a Jeep. I had a 45, Colt 45. That I was very familiar with. I was assigned one back then, and a machine gun. I had leg irons, handcuffs, 45, and a nightstick. And I'm driving this Jeep, and I pick this guy up, and he's generally in handcuffs and leg irons, believe it or not. And I knew this guy. He was a kind of a happy-go-lucky, not a dumb guy at all. He was a pretty good guy, honestly. He got mixed up with a woman. He's only like 21 years old. And you remember how things were back then? And he kind of lost his head over it. And he was a good soldier, but he took off. He had enough of the army. He wanted to be with his woman. So he took off. He got caught. And this guy was medium, height, about my size. I'm not medium height, I'm 6 foot tall. And sandy blonde hair. I remember him. Looked like a surfer guy, I always thought. Kind of upbeat. But this occasion he wasn't upbeat at all. And so I went to CCF, and I had to sign for this guy like a piece of equipment. They signed him over to me, and I signed for him. And they told me when I had to have him back. So, all right, how you doing? We get in the Jeep, and I took all his leg irons off, all that stuff, The heck with that. I took all that off. And said, don't worry about it, man. He was kind of embarrassed to have all that stuff. I knew he wasn't going to be a problem. I knew he wasn't. So, I remember driving him to see his dad, who was dying of cancer in a hospital. And this kid, really, my age, and we're just kids, really 21, whatever, young men. He was very emotional. And the other thing about using charcoal in these candles, if you use too much, the wax can actually catch on fire. He was very emotional, because obviously his father was dying, but there's actually more to it than that, as I would find out. I remember taking this guy I took him to dinner. I treated him to a really good dinner. Honestly, I took him to I forgot the name of the restaurant, but I actually treated him to a big dinner. And treated him all right. We got to the hospital, got up to the floor where his father was at. And speaking of the Army, my head's ringing really bad from my Army years. Actually, I have tinnitus from the years of being a machine gunner. I lost a lot of hearing, and it caused problems. I'm having a bit of an issue with it. That's life. I went in to see his father, and he waited in the hallway. And here's the story with his father. His father was a master sergeant. That's an E8. That's the highest. E9's the highest. That's command sergeant major in the Army. E8's a pretty good rank for enlisted. That's three rockers down and 3 stripes up. E8. So his father was a special forces, kind of hard-nosed, kind of professional soldier. And he'd done some tours in Vietnam. The guy was probably 50, I'd say about 50. Very thin, wiry guy, in bed obviously, very thin, emaciated, you could say, but he could still talk all right. He didn't look like he was on any death throes or anything yet. And Danny waited in the hallway where I could see him. The door was open. And his father was very angry with his son because his son was getting kicked out of the army for going AWOL. And his father told me, said, "Sergeant," he says, "I have a lot of respect for you. You seem like a very good soldier." He kept praising me, saying I seemed all right. But he said, "I don't want to see that piece of beep. I don't want to be anywhere near him. He disgusts me." He was really mad at his son for AWOLing out of the army. And, the man was the old school, professional, real hard-nosed combat soldier. I don't know if you've known any people like that. Tough as leather, really, like old boot leather. Hard heart, you better believe it. And the guy was real nice to me. "You seem like you're doing your job, I appreciate. Sorry you did all this and that," but he says, "Don't bring that kid, don't bring him in here, I don't want to see him." And I said, "Sergeant, please," I don't remember my words, but I was trying to tell him, "Please see your son. You may never see him again." And he refused to see his son, and he was calling him names, 4-letter words, like where he could obviously hear him in the hallway. And I could see Danny was very emotional. I don't know if he was crying, but he was hurt very bad. He loved his father. That much I got, that his father was written him off because he dishonorably left the army, and AWOL'd out over a woman. So I kept telling the sergeant, "Please see your son," and he refused to see his son. And I said, "Look," "I'm not leaving till you see him." And I knew the guy couldn't get out of his bed. I said, "I'm not." I said, "I got a job to do. And I said, "You can appreciate that. I came here to bring your son to see you. And that's my job. And I'm not leaving till I do it." I knew he would understand that I had a duty. And my duty was to bring his son to see him. So the guy relented, finally. And I said, "Dan, come on in." And I left and I sat out in the hallway. And they spent some time together, actually. I don't think he reconciled. I think he called him some names and told him he was disgusted with him. And the son left visibly upset, heartbroken. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the hardness of this man's heart. He's dying, and he knew it. And he wouldn't get over this whole thing with the army. The army isn't for everybody. Military, if you wash out of the military, if you blow it in combat, that's one thing. But in peacetime, you join the military, and it's like, yeah, this isn't for me. It's going to be hard to get out, but it's not for everybody. It's not the end of the world. By all means, you should honor your contract. But some people just can't, and that's just the way it is. It's always been that way, always. And that's it. That's all there's really to this story. I took Danny back, and I apologized to him, and he was hurt pretty badly. He probably, if he's still around, he's a guy about my age now somewhere, and he probably still has some pretty dark memories of that time. And to harden his heart, that was a very image of a hard heart. And you can get parents that harden their hearts to their children because their children didn't make the grade, didn't quite live up to their expectations, Or you can get children that harden their hearts to their parents because their parent is a conservative and they're not, or their parent, who knows what. Hopefully nothing too bad. I mean, sometimes there's a reason to block someone out of your life, you know, if they really, I won't even go into that. But hardness of heart in relationships where it comes between a husband and wife reconciling, or the causes a block in communication between a relationship, between two people. And there's somebody hardens their heart, and that stymies love. It's a love block. I'm going to read what the Bible has to say about it. Some verses I picked out. Yeah, I had a lot of odd jobs in the military, and that definitely was one. I forgot all about that till the other day. I couldn't believe it. All right, so here's ones on about the heart. Some of these, one of my favorite, Psalms 51:10, verse 101. Sorry, Psalms 51, verse 10. Create in me a clean heart, Lord, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Psalm 51:10. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. I think that comes with being forgiven, like receiving forgiveness. It's the only way you can have a clean heart, is to ask for forgiveness and humble yourself. Ezekiel 36, verse 26. And I will give you a new heart and a new spirit I will put within you. And I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. I think that's one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Because, you know, when we get older, or you go through some hardships in life, and you can get a hard heart. I'm starting to get a hard heart. I need to start praying that prayer again. Lord, take this heart of stone and give me one of flesh. Give me a brand new heart so I can see the world innocent and hopeful again like a child. You know? Ezekiel 36:26. And I will give you a new heart and a new spirit I will put within you. And I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. All right, Romans chapter 2 verse 5 says, but because of your hard and impenitent heart, you are storing up wrath for yourself on the day of wrath when God's righteous judgment will be revealed. Again, Romans 2 verse 5. But because of your hard and impenitent heart, you are storing up wrath for yourself on the day of wrath when God's righteous judgment will be revealed. Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23. Keep your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. So keep your heart with all diligence. That goes along with praying to God to take this heart of stone and give me a brand new one. Because I know that I've got to take care of this, that I remain a good person and a pure heart. No matter how old I get, I'm young at heart, you know, and that takes some effort because life will put you through some real benders in so many ways, and you know it and I know it. I know it. You live long enough, even when you're young you know it, but when you get older, it accumulates, and you can have a hard heart. Keep your heart with all diligence, and from it flow the springs of life. And it sure would have been nice to have heard that man forgive his son and embrace him, but that didn't happen. I don't remember the conversation. This was a long time ago. I'm not going to make it up, but I do remember what happened. His son went back to jail, and the father presumably died. Well, how sad is that? It's always good when people can be reconciled, and the message of the Bible is love and forgiveness, but also righteousness. But in relationships, and people need to be reconciled while the sun still shines. You know, Gotta make hay on good weather when the sun's still shining. So I would say to myself, I need to pray that, I think it was Saul that prayed, Lord, take this heart of stone and give me one of flesh, because I need that. I'm not worried about, you get hung up in the world. Like, I'm not, people upset you, people offend you, and you just write them off like, I'm not talking to them anymore. Or people say I'm ghosting them. It means I'm going to treat them like they're dead. I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to acknowledge them. That's not what the Bible teaches us at all, is it? Hey, I don't know about these candles, huh? This one's got a little fire going on it. Wow. I think I need to put a little less charcoal in them. I had a feeling they were going to do some strange things. All right. It's just wax, as long as it doesn't burn anything down. Now I know, don't put so much charcoal in them. All right, so that's the story on the prisoner escort duty and the hardened heart. And let's hope we don't become like that dying master sergeant was in our relationships. And we all know that Christ didn't call us to live like that. I've got disagreements with people. You better believe I've got a few of them floating out there. We don't see eye to eye on things. But I don't close my heart to them over it. Not at all. The communication lines are open, and I'm definitely game on forgiveness, and conversation and reconciliation is much more preferred than a long-standing grudge. Communication channels take work to keep them open and healthy. And ghosting someone, blocking them out, people that you're supposed to rely upon in your life and relationships, I don't think that's a good thing at all. Some people see it as a strength. Like, I'm strong. I've run into that so many times in my life. That people find it to themselves, they wrongly think that it's a strength when they can cut people out of their life. People they profess to love. Profess to love unconditionally. But they don't, do they? They don't. And they cut people out. And they think it's a strength. Like, I'm standing firm. I'm not having anything to do with, these people, even though they're part of my family or somebody I love. They haven't really done anything wrong. We just don't agree on some things. They insulted me. They hurt my feelings, or I don't know, whatever. Maybe they don't agree with politics the way I do, believe it or not. How many families and relationships have stupid politics come between lately? Come on, get real. All right, let's all pray for a heart of flesh, no matter how old or young we are, whichever. Just ask God, God, take this heart of stone and give me a new one of flesh. Renew my spirit, and stay honest, keep it honest in all things. And that's all I got to say on this. No, I don't think I'll do these again. This one's on fire now. Charcoal in the wax. Hey, the wax burns. All right, I tried it. Look at the sparks. 4th of July.